Okay, so today we're going to look at the social theories. They're the 4 social theories that have been listed in the syllabus, and then later on when we look at our case study of China, we'll apply one of these theories to China and continuity and change. So these 4 theories are evolutionary theory, functionalist theory, conflict theory, and interactionist theory. What I would like you to do is, for a short time, pause this video, and I would like you to apply each of the 4 images on the screen to one of those theories. This will give you a visual representation of the theory. Once you've done that, please go to the hyperlink that says Overview, Functionalist, Conflict, and Interactionist, and that will take you to a short YouTube clip briefly explaining each of those theories. So the first theory we're going to look at is evolutionary theory. And yes, you will notice that it has basis with Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. So the focus is how societies develop from small, simple entities into complex post-industrial societies. And we see this theory as a macro-level theory. Okay, so the assumption of the theory is that societies will reach newer and higher levels of development over time, and change is progress. So the main points of this theory is that every society develops over time and passes through the same linear process of change that progress through the phases below. So if we look at hunter and gathering societies, then they move to agricultural societies, then industrial societies, post-industrial societies. Now, you could apply terms like modernization to some elements of evolutionary theory. And as evolution theory has developed over time, it took into account cultural differences between societies and the fact that change occurs in many different forms. So what that means is just because a place has not taken the same linear process as another does not mean it hasn't gone through evolutionary theory. Now, all of these theories have positives and negatives. Sometimes we refer to them as strengths and weaknesses. This is because we can't apply all theories to every situation, and that's why we have more than one theory. So we're going to look at the criticisms. Now, the criticisms of the evolutionary theory is that it assumes all societies follow the same path. Okay, we know that many societies follow the same path, but there has been exceptions to that rule where they have either industrialized quickly, they may have skipped some elements of the evolutionary theory process, or maybe they haven't actually evolved as much as others as well. Similar to that is that we are assuming that all progress is the way that a Western society does it, and if it isn't done the same way as Western societies have done, then it isn't progress. And it's also looking at the idea that post-industrial or modern societies are somehow superior to these less developed societies. So you'll see below that there is a hyperlink. If you'd like to go to that hyperlink to watch a short video on evolutionary theory, you'll have to pause this video while you do that. Okay, so the next theory is functionalist theory, sometimes referred to as functionalism. So the idea is that it's a way in which social structures meet social needs. And as society develops, these social structures become more complex and interdependent, and they will change as society needs that change to happen. And the idea is that these functions are more effective when there's a clear social order, when individuals know they're part of the society and how they can all work together. You'll notice that this is both a micro and meso level theory. So social norms and values are something that they say govern social life in regards to this theory, and that gives our society structure. And it's held together by solidarity and agreement, what's good and what's not, and people cooperate as a result of that. The theory also says that simpler society has fewer institutions, and that a complex society accepts as differing institutions that are needed, and each institution has a role, yet allows that other institutions to go forth with their role in order for society to be successful. Also, often there's an interdependence of institutions, which means if one institution fails, the other parts of society must adapt. So dysfunctional institutions will cease to exist. Now, if an institution is failing not because it isn't needed anymore, maybe there will be another idea of an institution that might pick up the slack for some while, so society will come back into what we would call a type of equilibrium. And change comes through consensus, so all people have a say and decide on what change should occur. Now, there's a number of criticisms. The first criticism is that there's an emphasis on social stability rather than social change, and the idea if there's change, it could rock the boat, and that institutional change is often slow and cannot deal with some ideas of rapid or transformative change. It doesn't acknowledge the major role of individuals rather than looking at individuals and what they can do. It just focuses on the group as a whole, and it can ignore conflict. So it's assuming that everybody's just going to get along because they know their role, but we know that there's things that happen in society that can result in negativity or conflict. There's also a hyperlink there about functionalist theory if you'd like to go to that for more information. All right, we now move to conflict theory. So conflict theory is how social change and development are derived from conflict resulting from inequalities. So basically, there has to be a conflict to make change. So the assumptions are that change and conflict are normal and that inequalities of power are built into all social structures, and to change those inequalities there needs to be conflict. And human interaction often can result in conflict, and this gives explanation for revolutions and that type of thing. So we're looking at the main points. So in general, society is made up of individuals and groups that compete for resources and compete for power. And this can go from individual or the micro level all up until the macro level. The idea is back to Karl Marx's idea of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So those of you who have studied modern history will know a little bit about that. You're not expected to know it, but that's where the idea of the theory came from, and that in order for change to happen, the working class must disagree or have conflict with the wealthy ruling class. And the struggle for power and control reaches a breaking point at which time conflict will occur. Now, some of this conflict can be, huge war outbreak, or it can be on a micro level, a disagreement that leads to positive change. Now, as you can see, there'd be a lot of criticism. So the negative view of society that we have to argue, we have to conflict to make change. It neglects the positivities of social stability, and it doesn't account for any type of evolutionary change, and that a lot of other places and other societies don't actually are unable to apply this type of theory. And it explains human nature, but doesn't explain all individuals, and that we don't all necessarily seek to have conflict. Again, there's a video on the hyperlink if you'd like to click that one below and follow that for more information. Okay, so then we have our last theory, which is interactionist theory. So the idea is that people know their role in society, and people understand how society works through their interactions and relationships with other people. And these people help shape the world, and they act according to their interpretation. So what that might mean is that, for example, as a child, your relationship with adults has led you to understand that that adults are to be respected and they are to be listened to. And that in your interaction time after time with your parents and other elders has led you to that idea. So that's a very basic way of looking at it. So people look for patterns and interactions between individuals. People attach meaning to symbols to understand what's happening, to be able to make sense of the world. A little bit similar to when we were talking about schemas back with Piaget. People act towards things on the basis of what they've understood from a previous situation. And socially constructed relations that remain constant can change despite relative stability in the basic framework. So I think I'll finish with that one there. It can be a little bit confusing at times. criticisms. So it's hard to remain objective. Everybody has different, views on what's happening, and maybe that there's other social forces and institutions that influence us, not just a relationship or an interaction with a certain person or certain group. And it's narrowing the focus to make it really a micro level interaction when we know that there's other groups and institutions involved. There's also a video there for interactions theory. Now, don't be stressed if you have heard these theories and they don't make a lot of sense. They are not easy to understand straight away. What you need to know for the exam is a basic understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of each of the theories. We are just going to apply one of these theories to China, so we will go more in depth with this one in the future. Over this next slide, there's evaluation of the theories. It has a table with strengths and weaknesses. So you have 3 on this slide, and then the last one's on the next slide. So I hope that will give you a little bit more of an idea of what they mean. What I would also like you to do is, with this video on PowerPoint, I've also posted 3 articles. One of those articles is just a table that goes through all the different theories. I'm giving it to you, I hope, to give you more information, not to overwhelm you. Then there's another one that goes through some ideas of theories, and there's a third document which is called the broken windows theory. Now, it is not one of these theories. However, it's a very interesting theory to think about in relation to conflict theory. And I would like you to read it to have something to think about rather than actually apply it. Also, if you look in the textbook, they have 4 different tables about each of the theories with strengths and weaknesses for more information if you'd like to add to your notes.